Have you ever pondered why emotional baggage weighs us down, and how can we lighten our hearts? Imagine a world where we are no longer held captive by past hurts, unmet expectations and lingering regrets. A world where we can breathe freely, love openly, and live fully. This is not a fantasy, but a feasible reality. Our emotional baggage, the invisible weight that we carry around, often holds us back from reaching this state of freedom. It's like a heavy suitcase that we drag along, filled with memories, experiences, and emotions that no longer serve us. But what if we could unpack this suitcase? What if we could lighten our load? In the wisdom of Buddhist teachings, we find a roadmap to do just this. These teachings offer us practical steps to release our emotional burdens, to liberate our hearts and minds. Embark on a journey to unburden your heart and mind with 7 Buddhist teachings. Once upon a time, a man was struck by a poisoned arrow. In his pain and panic, he demanded to know who had shot the arrow, where they were from, what kind of wood the arrow was made of, and what kind of poison it contained. His friends and family, however, insisted on removing the arrow immediately to save his life. This story serves as a metaphor for our own lives. Often we are so consumed with questions about the past and the future that we forget to address the present. The man's urgent need was not to understand the origin of the arrow or the nature of the poison, but to have the arrow removed. In the same way, we might be struck by the poisoned arrows of anger, resentment, or heartbreak. We can spend our entire lives trying to figure out why we were hurt, who hurt us, and how they did it. But like the man in the story, this only distracts us from the urgent need of the present moment, to remove the arrow and heal the wound. Buddhism teaches us to focus on the here and now. It encourages us to put aside our desires to dissect the past or predict the future, and instead address our present needs and emotions. Like the man with the poisoned arrow, we too must learn to focus on what needs attention now, rather than dwelling on the past. Imagine holding a burning piece of coal in your hand. A searing pain radiates from your palm. The heat grows unbearable. A burning ember in your grasp, scorching your skin, seeping into your bones. You feel every second of it, the pain intensifying, the discomfort escalating. But why? Why would anyone hold on to something that brings them such pain? This is the tale of the hot coal, a Buddhist teaching that elegantly illustrates the destructive power of anger and resentment. These negative emotions are akin to that burning piece of coal. When we hold onto them, we are the ones who get burnt. We are the ones who suffer. Anger and resentment, they simmer in our hearts, grow in intensity, and consume our peace of mind. Just like the hot coal, they cause us pain, they cause us distress, and yet we hold on. We clutch onto these emotions, these burning coals, thinking that they will harm those who have wronged us, but in reality, it is us who are getting burnt. The beauty of this teaching lies in its simplicity. It's a gentle reminder that the longer we hold on to our anger and resentment, the more we hurt ourselves. It's not about forgetting or excusing the wrongs done to us. It's about choosing to release the torment, choosing to let go of the hot coal, to spare ourselves the pain. Just as one would drop a hot coal, we must learn to drop our anger and resentment. 2 monks were on a journey when they encountered a woman at a river crossing. The woman, elegantly dressed, was evidently at a loss about how to cross without ruining her attire. Moved by her predicament, the elder monk offered to carry her across. She accepted gratefully, and he lifted her in his arms, traversed the river, and set her down gently on the other side. They then continued on their journey. Hours later, the younger monk, who had been silent all this while, couldn't hold back his thoughts any longer. "Why did you carry that woman across the river?" he asked, his voice filled with disapproval. "We monks are not supposed to touch women." The elder monk smiled calmly and replied, "I left the woman by the river. Are you still carrying her?" The tale of the 2 monks beautifully illustrates the Buddhist teaching of letting go. Carrying the weight of past events, like the younger monk, burdens our minds and hearts, shackling us to moments that are long gone. The elder monk, on the other hand, was able to help the woman and then release the event from his mind, continuing his journey unburdened. Like the monk who left the woman at the river, we too must learn to leave our past in the past. a monk decided to rid himself of all his worldly possessions. With a heart full of conviction, he began his journey of non-attachment. He had a tiny hut, a patched-up robe, a wooden bowl, and a pair of sandals. One by one, he gave them away. The hut was left for a homeless wanderer, the robe to a shivering man, the bowl to a hungry child, and the sandals to a barefooted pilgrim. As he let go of each possession, he felt a sense of liberation, a lightness of being. His heart was no longer bound by the fear of loss, the anxiety of safeguarding, or the pride of ownership. He was free, free to experience the world in its raw, unfiltered beauty. Free to feel the earth under his bare feet, the wind against his skin, and the sun's warmth on his bare body. And yet, he was not impoverished. He was richer in spirit and lighter in heart. He discovered the joy of giving, the peace of simplicity, and the freedom of non-attachment. His life was no longer dictated by the material, but by the spiritual. In the grand scheme of life, our attachments are but tiny specks of dust. They weigh us down, cloud our vision, and obstruct our path to inner peace. Just as the monk released his belongings, we too must learn to release our attachments. A lotus flower blooms beautifully, even in the muddiest of ponds. This tale begins with a tiny seed lodged deep within the muck and mire at the bottom of a pond. It's dark, it's cold, and it's incredibly difficult to imagine how anything beautiful could possibly emerge from such adversity. Yet the lotus seed does not allow its circumstances to dictate its potential. It begins to grow, pushing its way through the murk. It navigates through the muddy waters, embracing the darkness and the grime, not fighting against it, but using it as the very nourishment it needs to flourish. Slowly but surely, the lotus bud emerges at the surface, breaking through the water into the sunlight. And there, despite its beginnings, it blooms into an exquisite flower. It's untouched by the dirt from which it arose. Instead, it stands tall, radiant, and breathtakingly beautiful. This is the essence of the Buddhist teaching of finding beauty and growth in adversity. The lotus symbolizes our own human journey. Our struggles, our pain, our hardships, they are our mud. But we, like the lotus, have the innate ability to rise from our mud, to grow through what we go through, to use our hardships as fuel to bloom. And as we learn to let go of our suffering, we blossom into the best versions of ourselves, untouched by our past, radiant in our present. Like the lotus, we too can bloom in adversity, letting go of our suffering. Now that we've journeyed through these stories, let's reflect on the art of letting go. It's a practice, an art form, if you will, that requires patience and understanding. Like the poisoned arrow, we mustn't let past hurts fester and infect our present. We need to pull out the arrow, address the wound, and let the healing begin. Remember the tale of the hot coal? Clinging to anger and resentment is akin to holding on to a piece of burning coal. The one who gets burnt the most is the one who refuses to let go. It's imperative to drop the coal, to release the anger for our own peace of mind. And then we have the story of the two monks. The younger monk carried the woman across the river, both literally and metaphorically, long after the older monk had let her go. As the older monk demonstrated, once the action is done, it's prudent to let it stay in the past, where it belongs. The monk and his belongings taught us that material possessions are transient. We mustn't attach our self-worth to things that can be lost or taken away. Like the lotus flower, we can rise above the mud, the murkiness of life's challenges, by letting go of our emotional baggage. May you find the strength to release your burdens and find peace, just as the teachings of Buddhism have guided many before.